Welcome back to Daybreak, and thank you for staying with us. So, since the establishment of Nigeria's minimum wage in 1981 at 125 naira per month, I mean, I can't remember when that happened, but I'm sure our parents were or forefathers were okay with that price. Now, there have been multiple revisions to address inflation and the rising cost of living. The most recent major adjustment was in 2019, which raised the minimum wage from 18,000 naira to 30,000 naira per month. That was by the former president, Muhammadu Buhari. Now, despite this, many workers still find it challenging to meet basic needs due to the high cost of living and the persistent inflation. In a surprising move, the Nigerian Governors Forum proposed an increase of the minimum wage to 60,000 naira per month. According to the governors, the proposal reflects a recognition of the need for a more sustainable wage that aligns with the current economic realities faced by workers. So this morning, of course, in this segment, we'll be examining the proposal and the responses from the labor unions regarding this development. We have in the studio Yusha'u Aliyu, who is an economist. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's good to have you.
Thank you.
And also we have, of course, Benson Upah. That's Comrade Benson Upah. He is the head of information and public affairs of the labor union. Good morning, Comrade. It's good to have you.
It's my pleasure.
As usual, it's good to have you. But let's start with you, Yusha'u. You've been watching the progress of, this negotiation between the tripartite committee, which involved the federal government, public sectors, and the labor union. What do you think is impacting the decision of the federal government on insisting at least with the latest offer of 62,000 naira?
It was a misconceived decision initially because when President Bola Ahmed Tinubu was elected in 2023, on 1st of May of that same year, before his inauguration, promised a living wage. So the issue here that is contending in the tripartite committee is a scenario in between living wage and minimum wage. So now it is obvious that we are not speaking on what is called living wage. We are still negotiating on minimum wage. That is the first quagmire. The second is a situation where labor itself proposed above 600,000 naira. That also is a situation looking at the labor force, looking at the legislation, looking at the income grouping, looking at the state income, looking at the business environment. So in my own, the third one, which is more disappointing, is a situation where the tripartite is working and a governor announced 70,000 minimum wage outside tripartite. So that is an indication that what predicated the decision for a sitting governor while tripartite is still going on, but quickly make an announcement of 70,000 minimum wage. So it is sad development for governors not to reach 70,000. It's a sad development for federal government not to reach 70,000.
Yeah.
Looking at the scenarios that I have put earlier, you have said it in 1981 when minimum wage was 125,000 naira. Sorry, 120 naira. Don't go far. When 18,000 naira was minimum wage, what is the purchasing power of an individual in that community? What is the economic scenario of that community? But I think what is missing, we are not realistic on the economic challenge that is facing the economy. Let me give you an instance. In deciding minimum wage or maximum wage, don't even go to living wage. Certain economic considerations are made, and these include looking at the current economic situation that is used by economics, that is cost of living index, assuming you are taking 18,000 minimum wage in 2011, but that individual taking 18,000 minimum wage can afford a bag of rice that was costing 4,000 to 6,000 naira. Meaning that if you go by that range, under cost of living index, on 18,000 minimum wage, no matter how poor a worker is, can afford not a single 50 kilogram rice, but can afford 3. So if you take cost of living index to arrive at any legislation on wage, it will be more considerate if you consider what the productivity of the worker will be and how the income will come to him and when to use it.
Indeed. All right.
Thank you.
Let's hear from someone from the labor union. Now, Comrade Benson, you've been here with us and you've been putting us through everything that is going on between the labor union and, of course, the tripartite committee. So far, the labor is not satisfied with the proposal of the federal government. But then you heard just how we were all shocked and surprised by the governor's proposal, saying they cannot go beyond the 60,000. And there was a governor, of course, like Yusha'u made mention earlier, saying that came out and make declaration that he could even offer more than this 60,000 naira. So why is the labor union not really okay with this? Can you elaborate on this? And why is this price not acceptable to Nigerian workers?
First of all, let me commend my co-guest, Malam Yusha'u, an economist, for distinguishing between the logic of a national minimum wage and a living wage. They are two separate things, even though they are a bit related. But let me also say quickly that it's true, Mr. President promised to pay a living wage. But if you cannot pay a minimum wage, you can't even dream of paying a living wage. You've got to lay a foundation. Okay? The minimum wage is the lowest level below which no employer in the law is allowed to pay. A minimum wage may not be sufficient for a worker, but the living wage certainly will take the worker home. And the worker will be able to live within a certain level of comfort. So let me just explain this. So Mr. President on this call has so far failed 2 tests. It's not been able to pay or announce a national minimum wage that is at once acceptable to critical stakeholders like organized labor. But we'll still hold him to his word. The promise to pay a living wage. Good. Having said this, let me go straight to what the governor who promised to pay 70 and is paying 70 is the governor of Edo State. What he did was an act of honor and in furtherance of his own personal principles. And it goes to show that the governor's argument, their present argument, goes to no issue. Because they go to the same pot, they take money from the same pot. But let me also explain here that states are allowed to have their the states are allowed to have their minimum wage, except that their minimum wage should not be lower than the national minimum wage.
So it could be more.
So it could be more, sure. In fact, private sector employers pay more than they've always paid more than the regular 30,000, 18,000, so on and so forth. So the national minimum wage is the lowest benchmark. Okay, so he did not break the law. He did not create an act of mischief. Rather, what he did was an act of honor, and we commend him for this. In any case, Lagos State has also joined. So
But shouldn't they have wait until
No. I've just explained to you that they are not bound to wait for this.
Okay.
In fact, when the governor of Edo State was making this promise at a public forum, which was the launching of the Labour House, of the Commissioner of the Labour House in Benin City, he did say, if the national minimum wage eventually goes higher than this, I will pay.
Interesting.
Yes.
Okay.
So we keep on commending him for this act of courage and sincerity. But now we are saying, in fact, a point of correction here. You said the governor said they cannot pay beyond 60. The governor said they can't pay 60.
Okay.
The statement they issued, they said if they pay 60, a few states will run into bankruptcy. That was their statement. And we found it laughable that governors, the most predatory authority in the land, cornering state legislature and their resources, cornering the judiciary and their resources, cornering the local governments and their resources, and now agitating to have their own police. Okay? The governors live in not-sitting luxury. Thank God you have as your headlines here, governors spend billions on cars for lawmakers. That is even just one index of their insanity, in quote. For those who whatever something. They spend much more money on mundane things that have no bearing or relevance to the people but themselves. So it is unfortunate that the governors have taken this path, even when the facts available speak to the contrary, and I'm going to go over them, that what is shared at FAC has since moved from 700 billion to 1.2 trillion, and it's still climbing.
So the cost of governance is still high?
The cost of governance is very high. Corruption is sinking the country. All that the governors need to pay, not just a minimum wage, is the living wage. To pay a living wage is to cut on the cost of corruption, cut on the cost of governance, minimize corruption, prioritize the welfare of workers. Okay? Inflation is trending at 33.7%, 40% for food. Exchange rate hovering at 1.6 to the dollar. That's 1,600 naira to the dollar. And interest rate moved to 26.5%. So businesses are exposed. Okay? Manufacturers are already crying. Say our warehouses are spilling with unsold. It tells you there is a national capacity deficit.
Yeah, we'll come back to that
Fine.
one, comrade, on that one. But then, Yusha'u, the Labour are calling for, of course, saying that the government's offer is insufficient. So, from your, economic expert standpoint, what potential impact could a significant increase in minimum wage have on businesses and overall the economy?
You see, minimum wage, whatever that is paid to anybody engaged, either directly through salaries or through wages, is not even a compensation. It's a payment for productivity. And that is why that payment is very significant to economic growth. Income grouping is necessary to understand what their surplus is. You cannot be paid 30,000 naira when you cannot even transport yourself to. So the only sector that is benefiting, probably under duress, may likely be transport. What about the health industry? What about the manufacturing industry? And that is why anytime I am emphasizing on what should be done to create economic growth. The first important point is to check income grouping in an economy, because a governor is a consumer. That's what he consumes. An average cleaner in the workplace is a consumer. He has what he consumes, but you consume with the limited income. So it is that income that would determine your prosperity. And if an economy is to have a shared prosperity, shared productivity, there is need to check what is keeping that work line in action. Let me tell you where we get it wrong. The economic quagmire that is called cost of living crisis was engineered by state governors in their attempt to make sure that subsidy is eliminated so that they can have an improved income. Now they have an improved income. Definitely workers are shortchanged because inflation last year from 22.22% to 33.67%. Definitely, if you check the monetary value in between 22.22 and 33.67, you will understand what you lost.
But people are skeptical that if at all the proposed minimum wage of the labor union go through, then it will cause another increase in inflation rate. What's your take?
From 2014, when inflation was single digit, salaries was changed only once. All the factors that changes inflation, salary increase is not there.
Yeah,
so how can you not justify that
Yeah.
salary that causes inflation? From last year, from June last year to June, now that we are speaking, there is no salary increase. So which salary increase can now dramatically changes inflation to this level?
Okay, it's good to hear on that one, because Nigerians have been confused. So, comrade, let's talk about what is happening based on this minimum wage. Do you think that the president would come out with, a better solution to this, considering the labor union is waiting for it? And if at all it happens, what would be the labor's union reaction if the proposal from the federal government is not up to at least the expectations of the labor union?
First and foremost, let me join my colleague here in debunking the argument that wages drive inflation. Wages per se do not drive inflation. I've said this in this forum before. That policies of government drive inflation. And I went on to cite this very example, that between June last year and now, wages have not been reviewed. Yet inflation has moved by more than
all-time high.
All-time high, okay? Moved. So it is left to our policymakers to put on their thinking cap and say, so what has gone wrong?
Okay, speaking about policies, some experts are saying that the labor union are pushing for the wrong thing, as in that is the incremental salaries. Why not go for, better push for the government to work on just policies that have drastically changed the life of Nigerians?
You see, those who marshal at this argument, with all due respect, do not seem to hear us very well. In our MOU of June 5th last year, we spoke to these issues. In our MOU of 2nd of October 2023, with government, we outlined this much more elaborately, the issue of transportation, the issue of intervention for big and small businesses, the issue of wage review in order to create synergy, the Obama solution. I've said in this forum before that Obama came in the middle of recession in the US. He gave money to big businesses, General Electric, General Motors, Chrysler and Co., and they raised wages and cranked the U.S. economy. Obama had a bullish run throughout his 8 years. Trump came and enjoyed that bullish run in his 4 years, making 12 years. It's Joe Biden who, due to his own personal policies, that is battling inflation in the U.S. economy. So, but let us leave the U.S. alone for now and focus on our situation. When you remove the fuel subsidy without dealing with the crime inherent in it, instead of dealing with that crime, you recall Mr. President did acknowledge the existence of a cabal committing crime. Instead of dealing with those people or with that crime, he turned on the vulnerable, the people, and started dealing with the people. And you can see that their solution has not lasted a day.
Because the subsidy is still being paid.
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
because I'm coming. So there are then two. I mean, when you do that, because it has now turned out to be a faulty policy direction, and then you come and devalue your national currency in such a massive way in the name of collapsing exchange rates. At the time he was doing that thing, a manufacturer said, oh yeah. But where is the forex for them? It's not there. So it's even more difficult for them now to source forex than before. Thirdly, and then you come and raise energy tariff. High energy tariffs are no good anywhere. This has been raised by 250%. In Ghana here, just raising by 4%, trouble started. And then not only that, you come and raise interest rate 26.5%. So all those policies are the ones killing the business environment, and that has led to 40% of big business gone.
We understand this, comrade. We already know our major problem. So right now, if at all the labor union does not get what they are expecting, what would be the reaction?
We will resist. We will protest.
So Nigerians should expect
we will protest, certainly, because let me tell you something. And our protest will be better managed than the protest of Nigerians. Listen to me very carefully today. We have no partisan interest. We have no other interest other than the sovereignty of this country, the security of this country, and the dignity of its citizens. I tell you this. But I tell you this, if things stand the way they are, Nigerians will start eating one another.
Which we hope it does not get there.
Do you understand me? For you to step out of your door, you will peep through your window, look left and right before you step out.
We hope it does not get there. Yusha'u, just quickly, do you agree with, if at all the outcome of this does not happen, should the labor union protest for this?
Labor economics reveal different strategies involved, from lobby to strike to protest. Every individual is aware of the labor movement. So I don't pray we get to that level, because it must be managed. There is need to stabilize a balance. 60,000 naira cannot take workers home, and 650,000 is also
not work for the economy. Yes, indeed. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Due to time constraint, of course, we cannot go on with this, but then we definitely hope that when we reach out again.
But for once, I disagree with Mr. Yusha'u. That 650,000 can take. It's 215,000 is 1/5 of the minimum wage in the U.S. We are paying U.S. rates at the moment. That's what we pay for.
We understand, but he's an economist, comrade. Thank you so much, Comrade Benson, Upah, for joining us today. Also appreciate you, Yusha'u, for joining us, of course.